Welcome to the Whiskey and Wisdom Podcast, coming to you from the Cargo District Recording Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we discuss the most fascinating topics of life. I'm Tyler Yaw with my co-host, Chris Kellum, and each week we interview a special guest to learn how they acquired their wisdom over a glass of whiskey. So, sit back, pour yourself a glass, and enjoy Whiskey and Wisdom.
Welcome back, everybody. This week we are on location in a new bar/lounge in downtown Wilmington, a place I've been many times, but not as this title or name. What's it?
Entity.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Underfront?
Underfront, the Underfront Company.
Very fancy.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Just so everyone knows, if you've been here for a long time, evidently it was called Cowboys a long time
Way
ago.
back in the day.
20
years ago.
And then Fire Bellies.
Yeah, Chris and I know it as Fire Bellies and Dead Crow Comedy, but now it has a brand new face as the Underfront Company. Yeah. And it's a pretty cool spot down here. Enjoy being one of the first on-location spots now.
Yeah. So this week, as per usual, you have myself, Chris, and Tyler, and then we have the owners, developers.
Yeah, owners and Joe Senna. And this is,
I'm Ivan Moore.
and absent from our panel is my wife, Abby, who helps us with design and just practical implementation of concept design.
Nice.
Awesome. That's great.
Keeps us on track.
Yeah.
You didn't design this whole setup?
This setup design itself,
Yeah.
This is a basement. So the beauty of a basement is that you can't change a whole bunch. You just got to make it work. So this thing really just kind of immediately spoke to itself. I mean, it told us what it wanted to be. We had to go through and we had to preserve the elements that were cool in the beginning. So all these timbers are old. These are 120-year-old timbers.
Wow.
You're looking at 3 main beams that are 40 feet long that are heart of pine. So me and Chip both did construction and work with our hands. So
Sanded those bad boys down.
step number 1, preserve what's here.
Yep.
You know?
Wow.
Sanded them down a little bit, smoothed them out. A whole lot of Danish oil.
Yeah.
Same goes for the floors. They're the original floors. We just ground them down and stained those.
Which is not fun. Never do that.
It's
Never
very
grind
dusty. I would not
concrete.
recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, so a lot of this kind of stuff is just preserving the original elements, and then we especially like the juxtaposition of old and new. So we went for this kind of Art Deco style in the back, and then when it's just put directly against this cellar early 1900s style, beam and brick structure, it's just gorgeous, man.
It really is. I love this layout. So because it's a lounge with amazing drinks and options, we were given 2 new drinks to try out.
So these are a couple of our house originals, riffs on older drinks, obviously. They are riffs on classic cocktails. You've got the Manhattan Clandestino. So we're doing several different fat wash spirits. So that's a duck fat washed bullet rye whiskey. And then for the sweet vermouth, we're actually subbing out Amaro Averna. And then it gets some of our house double black bitters that Joe's whipped up in the kitchen back there.
Oh, nice.
On the other one, you've got a bacon-washed old-fashioned, which is actually originally the Benton's Bacon Old-Fashioned. We've smoked that with pecan smoke. Gets a little maple syrup, orange bitters, and Angostura. So that's kind of some of my favorite cocktail stuff is doing riffs on classic whiskey cocktails.
Yeah.
And then modern technique. I don't know if you guys have any experience with fat washing or not.
I've had drinks that have been fat washed. I had a peanut butter washed
Yeah,
a couple weeks ago.
Peanut butter is on the list, man.
Yes. But yeah, once we try this, you'll have to definitely explain a little bit more about like the washing and how you guys ended up making up your own
Sure, yeah.
setups. But here,
Yeah, you guys go for
the
it.
Manhattan.
That's the Manhattan, yep.
of course.
I take it.
Oh, I don't care. And as per usual, I get an old fashioned.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's very good.
Thank you, Kyler.
Yes.
So it should pretty immediately come through.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Almost
that's so
instantly.
good.
Yeah. So we're just adding a kind of new dynamic to it. The history with fat washing is pretty simple, like most things are. It started, I guess, with perfumers that were trying to extract essential oils to use in perfumes, and then it got kind of translated. And then modern science came along and learned that things are fat and water soluble, and alcohol does a little bit of both. So using a duck fat or a bacon fat or any kind of oil, like coconut oil is one that we use, sesame oil, peanut butter, it melts, it literally melts the fats down and infuses it inside the spirit. Very similar to an infusion, but it does give you added viscosity. And really all you're transferring, not so much protein, more just the literal flavor of it.
Flavor, aroma, and the mouthfeel.
The mouthfeel,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That's always what I notice first too. Is it just feels different.
Yep, and that's that added viscosity, you know. So you filter out all of the solids in there, but it still leaves that little richness to it.
Yeah, and pretty easy method too.
It really is. There's not much to it. It just takes a little time.
Yeah, if you wanted to fat wash a bourbon out of the house with peanut butter, you would just take peanut butter, put it inside bourbon, mix it up real good, let it sit for about 24 hours, and then just freeze it solid so that it separates.
Got to filter it a few times too.
Yeah, you got to filter it in the end.
several times actually.
Yeah.
That's really the most time consuming process. Is just
the filter.
Yeah. Well, you know, you got to let it freeze. But
Yeah. So as we're trying all these, and my main question is, what kind of bacon did you use?
so I used Smithfield's.
He's a Smithfield guy. It's always going to be Smithfield.
Thick cut applewood bacon.
Okay. Well, I'm weird because I was watching a video a couple weeks ago, and they're like, what are the different kinds of bacon that you prefer? Do you want like that floppy bacon, or do you want the crispy bacon?
You want a really smoky bacon, and you want to cook it real low and slow
to
really get the flavor out of it.
Nice.
It's been BLT night at my house for about the last month.
I love it.
I want to meet the guy that prefers floppy bacon, just as a side note.
You're the guy. That
I am
prefers
not the
floppy
guy.
bacon.
I like crispy bacon. Are you a floppy bacon guy?
No, I am like a right in between.
All right.
Like I don't need it super floppy, but I don't want it crispy to break my teeth.
If you held it with your two fingers and went like this, would it fall down and touch? No. Okay. So you're that's medium crisp.
Sturdy
Bacon.
Yeah.
That should be an option.
I want to tap it and it shatter.
That's crisp.
I'm not quite at that crisp yet.
That's like bacon bits to me.
So I think I actually
Yeah, pretty much by the time.
I think my father-in-law. No, never mind. I'm wrong. But there's someone in my life that like we were at an IHOP one time, and they asked for extremely floppy bacon, almost not cooked, and I almost left. Like I almost like walked out.
What did the waiter
I was like,
say?
"There's no." They were just like, "What?" I mean, it didn't compute. It was just like a total silence across the entire IHOP.
I love it. So now that we've talked about drinks for a little bit, we'll jump back. I like to go forward and then back, like my favorite movies. Where are you guys from? Because you don't sound like Wilmingtonians, I guess.
I'm originally from like a mile and a half down the road in Smithfield, North Carolina.
Okay. It's been a while since I've been up there.
Yeah,
Not a whole lot going on up there, but it's a nice place to grow up. Nice, quiet town.
Yeah.
we're both North Carolinians. I'm from Morganton, North Carolina.
Okay.
But lived in Greensboro for about 15 years. So I think when you're born in North Carolina, especially in rural North Carolina, you really work hard to get rid of
The accent.
the accent. Yeah.
I don't, and whenever I actually hear this, you know, again, I'm going to sound like a country bucket. Every time it shocks me how much I sound like Boomhauer when I'm like, in my own voice.
I was embarrassed when I was a kid, and like especially in middle school. I mean, like they're gonna call you out. Like I remember I used to pronounce certain words wrong, and I made a concerted effort to like lose the accent. And I wish I had it now because I think that it's super cool to have a sophisticated Southern accent. I think it sounds great.
Right.
Well, I always ask, not because like people, I feel like, oh, you're super Southern. Wilmington itself has like 3 accents, and everyone looks and you're like, well, yeah, because Carolina Beach has one, Wilmington proper, and then like
Carolina Beach definitely has one.
yeah. Well, Castle Hayne has its own accent, and like to me, that's Wilmington. It's like New Hanover County, but I'm like, I can tell if there's difference. I technically grew up here, and I don't have a super crazy accent.
Yeah, I wouldn't have pegged you as a Wilmingtonian.
Yeah. My mom was a school teacher, so
Oh,
she
there
was
you
like,
go.
let's.
Yeah, she was strict.
My mother was an English teacher for 40 years.
I applaud her.
Me too. Every day.
Yeah, stuck it out.
Yeah, I think my mom, she's been teaching 34 years. And I'm like,
Good on her.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
no, I would never. Having multiple years teaching with so much changes from year to year. I'm like, I can't even do it.
I recently heard that they stopped teaching cursive.
Yes.
I'm kind of sad about
Yeah,
that.
they did. My daughter's 7. She's in the 1st grade. No cursive.
That's crazy.
I didn't learn cursive till like 3rd grade.
I'd say that's about par for me too, but now it's just totally gone.
Yeah,
Like, what are these
they're
kids gonna do?
not going to teach it. I mean, they barely need to know how to use a pencil at this point. You know, so.
Right.
Are pencils not a thing anymore?
Nah, they are.
Oh,
They
okay,
are.
good.
But
Well,
they won't be by the time she's in the 3rd grade. Probably. You know,
I
yeah,
mean-
just put it on your tablet.
A lot of things are going to tech. So like almost every school is shooting to have like an iPad or a computer. So then you're typing everything instead of writing it.
Exactly.
I rail against that. Like, and I immediately did like the thumbs down, but like, it's so rare that I write that I went to write the other day and it's just deteriorated so much because I'm just so used to texting.
I write all the time.
See, that's good. You're maintaining it. You don't
Yes.
have to write all the time, I'm sure.
Oh,
but
no,
you
I
choose
do.
to.
Well, I write because I take notes of like if someone comes in and talks to me, I want to write it down.
Right.
So if I write it, I'll remember it. If I type it, I'll be like, huh, it's all
I
the
keep
same
a
thought.
little
same
notebook
way.
too, and I'm the same way. If I actually physically write it down, I remember.
I want to start doing that. I find that very classy. I do.
Yeah.
I like the notebooks. Like you have like a little leather bound satchel notebook
Yeah,
thing that you write
carry
stuff
it
in.
everywhere.
Yeah, I have the same exact thing too. So if like I need to remember it or like taking notes on something, like that's where it goes and that's where it stays, and then I know where it's at.
That's where
I
I get
send my wife random texts that are totally have no context. Wooden Lawn 335. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's the Wi-Fi password. Save it for me. What's up?
I have been known to do that as well too, and she'll be like, just send me a bunch of
She's
question
the
marks.
keeper of all my
Like,
stuff.
what's going on?
Yeah, what does that mean?
love it.
So how did you guys originally get together and meet then?
So we were both in business on Elm Street in downtown Wilmington. About the time
Greensboro.
or excuse me, no, Greensboro.
Yeah.
At about the time we were closing down a bar I was at, Joe was opening a cigar bar. We're taking over a
Churchill Cigar Bar
line.
for
Yeah.
you Greensboro folks.
Incredible bar back in the day. And so, yeah, we were like 3 doors down. So I started working over there, and me and him and his wife, Abigail, just made fast friends. And we were buddies for years and years. You know, we worked together. I moved down here, I guess, 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And we kept up, you know, and they would either come down here once a month or I'd go up there and just visit and hang out. And then finally, I guess 6 years or so ago,
Yeah, about 6, maybe 7.
we opened Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And
Yeah, he gave me a call. I was like, man, there's just nothing here to the caliber cocktail wise that's happening in Greensboro. So we should look at some spots. And I remember we were staying on our buddy's yacht, and we came down here, and it was super cool. It was just like a cool scene. Like our buddy had this crazy boat parked there. He's like, no, just take the keys. I was like, I don't want to take the keys.
yeah, it was like parked right downtown, you know. It was like,
Just felt like super fancy.
I was single at the time. He was like, yeah, I'll leave you a key. You can hang out on the boat anytime you want. I was like, really? Don't mind if I
It was
do.
awesome. Yeah. And then we saw Gray Street, and it was just a mess. And I don't know. We were still in kind of the fake it till you make it phase back then. Like we had done some stuff, and like Churchill's, it was a big bar. It was successful and did well, but it was still just kind of like the tip of the iceberg from like a
Cocktail perspective.
Yeah, and just general business depth. I mean, we came down here, and we had a budget, and we had to make it happen. And I've always liked doing construction, so we were doing a lot of construction, but I was commuting back and forth to Greensboro and working Churchill's 5 days a week, and then coming back here and doing construction a couple of days a week. And Chip's just sitting here trying to knock it out.
I was about to say, I was trying to knock it out. Meanwhile, working like
Greensboro,
I'm like working 3 jobs, trying to learn everything I can about cocktails and pay the bills. And it's like, well, I'm out of money. I got to work 3 jobs, and I got to work till 5 o'clock in the morning.
It was just fun. Yeah, and Whiskey Tango came out beautiful. That was the first place we built, and we did about a square mile of wood antiquing, pine wood slabs to build all that stuff, and
a lot of sanding and
it
staining.
was just so much fun, man. We just had a good time. Like we'd bring don't tell anyone, but a couple of 22s up there and just sit and drink a few beers and sand and stain for 18 hours and drive back to Greensboro, sleep on Chip's couch.
It's like, all right, I got to get up on the scaffolding. I need a couple more 22s.
The scaffolding was not fun. But it was really cool. It was a good experience. And then, Gray Street, I don't know if you guys remember the Browncoat Theater or not, but it wasn't in good shape. So it was our first like big, remodel snafu. And
Didn't know what we were getting into. It ended up being like a down to the bare studs.
had to
kind
do
of
mold
demolition.
remediation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there was a lot going on. But, part of the reason why we got into it when we got into it was because it was apparent to us that whole section over there, that Gray Street, was just around the corner from being up and coming.
Yeah.
And
the hotels had just come. I mean, we had the Hampton Inn, the Marriott.
The Marriott had been there for a little while, and then the Hampton opened a week before we did at Whiskey Tango.
Oh, okay.
So it was just kind of like, there's no way this isn't going to be a popular strip if we can put something, worth making the trip, extra couple blocks down here.
Yeah, people just looked over that spot. And I said this before, and I think it's really true. It's like the one time in life that we've gotten in before it was hot. Like no one was thinking about it. Everyone was thinking about, market in front. And we just looked at it and we're like, man, we want this whole block. So we got that whole block at some point.
And you did.
Over the course of a few years.
Yeah, and like it had the intended impact. I mean, I think downtown's kind of shifted this way. I mean, we've driven business here and been able to kind of cultivate a community that, in some part we were responsible for designing. So like it's very thematic, and Underfront fits right in the mix of them, which I think is great. It's cool to actually, kind of be able to dictate your own terms of what's around you.
And then, since we've been down here too, like I said, it hasn't been a like self-fulfilling prophecy, but all the new high-end apartments down here, the amphitheater, those have all come up in the last 6 years.
Yeah, and then the rumors of pedestrian drinking, that seems like it's going to happen. I think live.
Fingers crossed.
Be so excited for that.
Well, it's been talked about for the last year, and I think a lot of that agenda is getting pushed by Live Nation, and they just have massive amounts of power and pull, in city planning and development. So I think that, what we're seeing is development that's kind of hinging with that partnership with Live Nation, and the more they can do, the better, and Wilmington's, waterlocked. So I think that we're in a really great place to be the center of, future expansion. So that's why we're back in this area. Not only are we just partial to it.
That's our neighborhood now too. We've been down here for 6 years, and
know all the faces.
And all of our businesses up to this point, including Underfront, have been more directed towards, a little bit more mature, not wild, falling out the door drunk kids.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of our clientele appreciates the fact that they can walk a couple of blocks further down the street on a Friday or Saturday night, and it's not such a melee.
Yeah, I'll be honest too. When I hit up Chris to say like, hey, like we need to go interview these guys, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot was one of my favorite places to go, because I've never been that like college, let's go down and get like wasted at 2:00 in the morning. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot came around when I was down here for like 3 years, so it came like perfect time for me. So I was one of the first people through the door and one of the last people when you guys left. So I love that, and the same thing what you did with like Taco Baby and Rum Cow and all of that too. Just having that like little bit of an upper echelon that you kind of brought to the downtown. I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you kindly.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we did sell Whiskey Tango 3 years ago, and I do want to shout out the people that own it now. We have made decisions in the past, and it's just strategic business decisions. But Joe Aperfine has been doing an amazing job at keeping up the standards, and I fully support those guys and want to be part of that community because I respect them as business folks. And when we sell something, we don't sell it lightly. We are serious about the people that we sell our concepts to, because
absolutely
we're going to be remembered for it.
Yeah, we're going to be remembered for it, and we want it to be around 20 years down the road, because it is all our own blood and sweat and tears that go into it.
Yeah. But I mean, the credit now is due to them, and they're maintaining it, they're expanding it. Those are great guys.
Yeah, that place
they're making it happen.
Yeah. Hopefully with everything that's pushing this way, we've been talking about it for a few years. We're kind of trying to develop like a downtown cocktail district, more or less.
Yeah, cocktail district.
So instead of bar hopping, if you're a kid and you're bar hopping and hitting all the dive bars and all that, that's cool. If you're a little bit older and you want to
experience,
yeah. Instead of bar crawling, you're sashaying, sauntering from cocktail bar to cocktail bar.
Well, that's just the reality in our business. When you come down, you're going to stay for a couple of drinks for sure. I don't think any bar or restaurant that I've had, I think this is our sixth concept, and I don't think that I've ever thought that I could keep people for more than 2 hours. I think that that's about the point, right? Like they try stuff, it gets saturated. You want turnover inside so that there's kind of fresh faces and fresh energy. So it's just kind of appropriate.
Default.
You want people to go from Whiskey Tango to the Vibe to Underfront. You want people to feel safe in this area.
You gotta have dinner at Taco Baby or Rum Cow.
Yeah. And I like the district system. Like you go to a lot of major cities and like you can go to places that are specific for like what you want to be catered to. Like, if
definitely.
I like just thinking about that is like, doing the cocktail. Cause I remember, we're doing a bar crawl. Let's go from here to here. And I'm like,
Jaeger bomb. Do
I really want another? But I like having that option, especially because I feel like Wilmington is growing and expanding, and there hasn't really been a lot of options where it's like, let's go have a drink at a really high end spot besides like sitting on top of the hotels. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you guys
are also cool.
Yeah.
Right.
But
it has a place.
I don't want to go take everybody there. I like to expand, and I like to invest in the town. So like, if I have the opportunity, let's go over here. Let's try something new out. And I think you guys are doing a great job kind of helping expand those options.
And hopefully people keep on coming. I mean, we do have kind of like a diversified, we're vertically integrated over on the, the north side here. You've got casual dining, you've got Rum Cow, realistically, is almost fine dining. Like it's casual fine dining. Like the food that we cooked there for the last 5 years is everything. I worked fine dining my whole life, and all those techniques and methods and plates and presentation is there. So I consider it casual fine dining. And then we've got a good scene for after dinner drinks with the three of us, the 3 cocktail bars down here. So hopefully it just drives continual traffic and growth to this area. Which
is kind of the thing that I feel like Wilmington is needed, because I've lived here my whole life. So I remember when everything, like you said, was on Market in Front. And if you went over like half a block, you're like, oh, nope.
Yep.
Which is kind of crazy to think.
Well, I was going to say the same thing too, when like my wife and I would come down here to like do whatever downtown. And the only place to go next was like Islands when that finally went in down there. And you're like, okay, it's completely dark. Is this safe to be down over this side?
Well, in Gray Street 10 years ago, I mean, when I first, I guess 10 or 12 years ago, when I first moved down here, you didn't really go down Gray Street.
Yeah, I mean, how many times did we hear on Gray Street, like people would tell us that the 2 most common ones was that it was just chronic failure, that every place, no one lasted a year. It was the curse of the 1 year on Gray Street, and then they were all haunted, and you're on the wrong side of town, you're on the wrong side of Market.
Well, it used to be pretty rough before the Marriott was there. Yeah, that did a lot to the Marriott and the Embassy Suites and everything too. Like the hotels, I think in part, and the amphitheater are doing a lot to just kind of.
Well, it's kind of a natural progression too. I mean, like Wilmington downtown is locked by the river, so I mean, like it's gotta expand. I mean, things gotta grow. Wilmington was the number 1 city or number 2 city for growth in 2020, I think.
Yeah.
Like we got a massive. I think that it's actually been passed over to Leland, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the number 1 percentage growth city in 2022.
Yeah, which is also a good thing for you guys too, because as soon as you come over the bridge, because when you're in Leland, you want to go for Isabella Homes, because I live in Leland, so it's just easier to jump. Yeah, because that's just a whole other beast within itself. So you go for Isabella Homes, you're the first stop over here with the majority of your stuff, and then of course you said like the vibe too is kind of down there, and so like that whole kind of district, and it's a whole lot less crowded, it's a lot less busy. It doesn't feel like the college crowd that you're used to feeling downtown.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciate too. So it feels nice. It feels upscale. That's what I really like about it. And what to kind of build off of that, what made you want to start bringing that upscaleness to Wilmington other than you didn't feel that it was here?
Well, we are getting older for one thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a natural.
I'd been down here for years though, before we opened Whiskey Tango, and I wanted more of that myself. It's like you were saying earlier, Chris. It's fun, when you're in your 20s to go out and hit all the bars and have a rowdy time on a Friday or Saturday night. You get older, you get in your 30s, that gets tired pretty quick. It had gotten to the point that I wouldn't want to go out on a Friday or Saturday night. It's like, okay, well, obviously there's something missing here. I'm a grown up that wants to go out and have a good time. I got money to spend, but I don't want to go out there and get in the middle of that. So why is there not a better option?
Yeah, and it works. I mean, that's like with Churchill's. I mean, I was on the middle of Elm Street in Greensboro, which is dumping out 10,000 college age kids from 15 clubs. That I mean, it's chaos. And I walked into this super chaotic scene with a very upscale venue, and we were a cigar lounge, and trying to figure out how to navigate inside that kind of subculture of like the club scene became like the thing. And what we did is we enforced a strict dress code. We enforced age limits, and what we found is that everyone wants to be a part of everything. I mean, it's just kind of like a natural drive. Like everyone still wants to bear witness to like the craziness. They just don't want to be part of it. So we became like the calm little center of the world on Elm Street.
We sit on the patio and watch the chaos.
Zero fights. Yeah, we got upstanding folks, and they still enjoyed it, but from a distance. So, I mean, I've seen it in action and kind of terraforming, and like, I mean, especially Greensboro, like just because when I was there 10 years ago, like it was kind of at its worst, I suppose. And there
it was a rough scene for sure.
A lot of stuff going on, a lot of violence, and being able to survive in that kind of environment and really thrive by doing upscale was like, oh, well, there's a great market for this.
Not to go like too far down this rabbit hole, but just something on top of my head and I've been thinking about too. Is there something that keeps you from opening a cigar bar in Wilmington?
Well, so Whiskey Tango was actually a cigar bar, believe it or not.
Okay, yeah.
So we sold cigars. I was in the cigar business for a long time. I mean, the easy answer to that is yes. There's a lot of legislative changes in the last 10 years that prevents you from doing indoor smoking. So Wilmington's not a good spot because the number one legislative change is that it has to be a freestanding building. So, I mean, I've opened other cigar bars since Churchill's and since that legislation, but the stuff that you have to do to get through it is not super viable down here.
Incredibly prohibitive and expensive, and
in like a downtown environment, it's a lot harder. Like I could do one, but like I feel most comfortable downtown, and there's just not a lot of spots that would be available for it more than anything.
Right.
And I don't smoke anymore, so that's another kind of easy
That makes
catalyst.
a big difference.
Well, I started smoking. I mean, like a lot of young North Carolinians when I was 11 or 12. So I smoked until I was early 30s, and it just had an impact on me. It had an impact on my health. So I stopped, and cigars, unfortunately, were a casualty of me stopping cigarettes. So it's not my comfort zone anymore. More than anything, I guess.
That makes sense. So transitioning from cigars to cocktails, when you were at Churchill's, did that have an effect on like the cocktails that you were making? If you were combining, like pairing them with cigars?
Yes.
it was like, well, go ahead.
I'm a Scotch man. Churchill's and cigars are inextricably linked. Scotch and cigars. I liked it in its simplest form. So from a cocktail perspective, sure, we did a lot of the classics. For me, it was a rabbit hole of Scotch and bourbon and what plain Scotch or plain bourbon, how it would augment a cigar.
Yeah, I was about to say, we always steered people towards a good whiskey to go with their cigar more so than
a very kind of like old world kind of idea is that you're taking a Scotch and that you're modifying it with the flavor of your cigar. Mm-hmm. So I think that those things are such a strong pairing by themselves. I don't know that Churchill's drove me further down a cocktail rabbit hole. It probably actually made me a purist more than anything.
Scotch rabbit hole.
Yeah, right. But I got in Scotch for a long, long time. Still into Scotch. That's my drink of choice, and it's hard for me to adulterate Scotch. I just like to drink it straight.
I don't blame you there at all. And so, in your professional opinion, do you think the Scotch and the cigars go well together because of that peatiness, that peat reek of the Scotch?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it depends on the cigar and the Scotch. I mean, I think the classic combination is a peated Scotch with a mild to medium cigar. Okay. So that you're adding a floral bouquet to the cigar. Okay. Peat has a very intense, if you don't drink it a lot, kind of antiseptic quality, but for me, it's more of a floral quality. So I think when you're rounding out like a earthy, medium body Maduro wrap cigar, that you get a lot of the earthiness, and then adding the bouquet from the Scotch on top is really where the magic happens. And teaching people that kind of stuff has always been a passion of mine. I started in fine dining, so I went down the wine thing for a long, long time, way too long. And I just liked it. I liked when people kind of realized stuff, cigars and Scotch. I can take any man on the street.
You can see it on their face too when it clicks.
Yeah, and the first time you get a guy smoking a cigar and you give him a good peated Scotch, and you're like, all right, now just hold it right in the end of your lip and let it wick up your tongue, and then take a drag of your cigar. And they're like, oh my God, it totally changed. I mean, that moment of realization, like there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of, just kind of simple joys in the industry that we have. I mean, same thing applies to this, doing new techniques on classic drinks and just new techniques in general. It just expands people's repertoire, and they're excited to see it. And that's really what we kind of thrive on. And it's a really cool thing when you see someone kind of have this revelation of taste, and I was a chef for a long time. So like, that's what it was always about. Like it was always about being dynamic and adding flavor and, breaking the norms and exposing people to things that they wouldn't eat. There's so many people that are just locked inside this small kind of macaroni and cheese box until you give them macaroni and cheese and langostina, or something more creative that you can kind of introduce. And I think that's the goal for us from like a creative perspective.
I tried to get my daughter on crab mac and cheese.
Oh yeah,
fresh crab. It was delicious.
So
homemade mac and cheese. Turns out she's allergic to crab.
Oh no, that's the worst.
Yeah, so her palate remains undeveloped.
Yeah, but it's just fun, man. And like, at the end of all this, like, me and Chip are just two adults that still get to play. Like, that's what we get to do. Like, we are drinking
have
for
fun
a
in the
job
basement.
And, just playing, man. And that's what you gotta get. And I don't know. We were retired for a couple of weeks, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're not retired?" I was like, "I don't."
For 3 weeks.
I don't know if I can. Like, there's so much short term, so much creative energy. Like, you want to do something. Like you guys are doing something. Like everyone's got to have like an outlet, and like you guys want to explore, and we're just doing the same thing. It's just on a, it's a different idiom.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to introduce them to Anthony Tubbs, who we brought on the podcast. So he actually studied whiskey, Scotch in Scotland,
nice.
but also has a dream of opening his own cigar bar as well, too.
Oh, introduce me, man. I'd open a cigar bar with quickness. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I don't think that'd be the,
Right.
The primary.
the primary.
Yeah, exactly. Finding the right person at the right time, at the right opportunity. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I think that'd be great. And that's one thing in downtown Wilmington. I mean, in Greensboro, just because it's kind of, I don't know, Greensboro is denser in a way from like a appetites perspective. Like there's quite
urban.
a few.
It's a lot more urban too.
Yeah.
It's more of a city, you know.
Yeah.
I've always thought of Wilmington as a large town.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or a small city, whereas Greensboro is a full-blown city.
Yeah, so the density's kind of there, but like we have Scotch bars, and like there's not a Scotch bar here, and in different cities, I mean, all over the world, really. Like if you go to China, and just as a side note, if anyone is curious where all of the
good whiskey is.
yeah, where all the high marks of your whiskey and Scotch has gone, I went to China recently, and that's where
It's
it is.
there.
Yes,
No way.
for sure. Yeah, Pappy on every shelf in every like random restaurant you go to.
No,
yeah,
I'm
sure. Yeah,
That's
it was great.
crazy.
It was awesome. I was really super
Yeah,
excited.
I'm
I was
sure
like,
to
I will
experience
take the Pappy 20 years. Sure.
Right.
Go ahead and bring it on.
It's probably, and China is probably a decent price too.
Yeah, and you know the rules are kind of different there, so you got to learn how to play by the rules. You know,
Sure.
but yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean from a pricing perspective, great, and producing really good whiskey on their own. I don't know if you guys have been through the
No.
Suntory portfolio yet or not.
Okay. Yeah. Suntory a little
Hibiki
bit.
high marks, Yamazaki high marks, like they're all making great Scotch.
Oddly enough, that was the first whiskey we tried on the podcast.
Hibiki?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, which one?
Which one was it? The 23?
It was in the really
Your
beautiful floral bottle.
You guys had the 23-year-old Hibiki as your first.
I can't.
That's awesome.
It's a hard
had-
act to follow.
So
Yeah, exactly. We started out super expensive.
I've never even seen that bottle.
Yeah.
I'm aware of it existing, but like that's super lucky.
It was over at the Ballast.
23?
Ballast has a 23-year-old.
They did over a year ago.
That's awesome.
I can tell you.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Because Hibiki actually switched to a non-age statement, as have a lot of scotches,
Right.
because they've burned through their reserves. And Hibiki now does like the Harmony, but I don't think you find many age statements. I certainly don't see them in North Carolina often.
Yeah. Or was it the Harmony? I know they at least have that at Rounds, but I don't know. I can't remember.
So Harmony, it did have flowers that were painted on the bottle, and it was not an age statement, but they did say that they were blending only 12-year and up whiskey into it. So
I think that was the
the
one.
23-year would have been about, I'd say, like $800 or $900.
Yeah, no, it was probably the Harmony.
Oh well, the Harmony was great.
I was like, Harmony. I was like, I did not spend that for my first drink.
Well, no, we just got a shot of it each. So, and it was still expensive for both of us. It was like $100. So,
Oh yeah, so you probably had an age statement Hibiki then.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. That's a good way to start, man. And then Yamazaki is kind of the big brother of Hibiki. And
Okay.
I've had the Yamazaki 18 one time, and it was just amazing. You're talking about a 99-point whiskey, so yeah, pretty incredible.
It's been an interesting year in general. So like we're recording this like right at a year of having the podcast out, and all of the different whiskeys that we've tried, because we've only double tapped on it like 3. But it's just been interesting to kind of see like what our flavor palette, like how our palates have opened up, like the profiles we've kind of tasted, which you kind of pointed out, like mixing certain things kind of opens your mind to other flavors. And I think that's like just in general, it's been a cool experience.
Oh yeah.
That's definitely a lot of what we want to do with our cocktail program here as well. Is just, introduce people to stuff that they wouldn't think of otherwise, and that they might initially think, and then just blow their mind.
Yeah.
So who developed the cocktail menu here?
I did, and then our bar manager Haley contributed quite a bit, and Joe's wife Abigail contributed quite a bit.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah. I'm looking at this. So because we're in the cargo district most of the time, we started out at the Starling for like trying out new whiskeys, because I make a decent amount of money, but not enough to just be buying a bunch of bottles. Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting. It's kind of like you guys pointed out, knowing someone who can give you a good flavor profile and be like, okay, this is going to taste good with this, or that'll taste better with that, versus going to like I was telling Tyler the other week, I hate going to the clubs because all I can ask for is like, can I get like a you got a whiskey ginger, and they give you like a bottom shelf plastic bottle.
Jim Beam and ginger.
Yeah, and you're just like, I can't handle that anymore. But being at the Starling kind of opened my brain, and looking at your menu now, I'm just like super excited, just because I went there and I've tried a bunch of things, and like I know if you find a good bartender or bar manager, someone who can get good flavors and knows what they're talking about, you can have the best experience.
Yeah, the world's your oyster. There's nothing that's really off limits here.
And it's customizable too. I mean, like, you know, so many times, and I mean, in my life individually, and I'm sure everyone else's, like, you just think of, you know, a Manhattan as a Manhattan that, you know, it's made in the Manhattan Club. There's a specific recipe. That's what it is. But like, I don't understand why we impose those kind of rules on ourselves. Like, there's no reason.
Well, we don't.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah. Like, I mean, that was his idea to switch over to Amaros for vermouth subs. And that's just a great idea. You know, I mean, it's just so natural and more palatable. I mean, like, let's just be honest. Like, you know, vermouth can be kind of overwhelming. And if you want a delicate drink that you're going to, you know, impose structure to, then, you know, you need to change some of the ingredients. And I think that being able to be versatile and breaking out of those boxes are one of Chip's really strong suits when it comes to cocktail.
The trick is to keep it, you know, not totally reinvent the wheel, keep it within that same general wheelhouse that somebody that is a habitual Manhattan drinker is still going to enjoy it and enjoy it even more.
Well, and an Amaro and a vermouth are the same general thing anyway. It's just, you know, how they're made. So,
Something else I want to point out too. So I'm looking at the menu right now, and the way that it's structured is fantastic in my opinion, because if my wife were to come here, that's the thing. And when I bring her to a new place, I want her to experience that it's more upscale. She never knows what to choose. So the way that it's structured here, I'm just going to read it off. The headlines are going to say fresh and fruity, bitter and herbal, bold and smoky, nice and spicy, digestive and coffee, and NA and NP. And so what's fantastic about that is most people typically know what their palate leans towards for the most part. You find where your palate lies, and you choose a
got a
cocktail
whole playground right there.
Yeah. That fits right to it.
Well,
That's perfect.
I think people are more likely to come out of their comfort zone too, with the menu structured that way. You know, whereas they absolutely just, I don't ever want to try a gin drink, but then, you know, that falls into their, you know,
and that was really practical too. That my wife is the one that wanted to kind of push for that structure, and it was really just because so much trial and error in cocktail menus. Yeah, you know, and so much information is gathered. I mean, the glasses on the side, I think, are another important element of that menu because, you know, she's gonna want to drink something in a coupe, but it also tells you what's there. If you've got a 4.5 ounce coupe, then it's going to be all spirits. You know, it's going to be a bigger drink from like a liquor forward perspective than if you have a Collins glass. And you can kind of get, I mean, the average cocktail drinker can get a lot of information from that. Yeah. So if you're doing something and you see that coupe and you do not like lots of alcohol, you're going to be like, not getting that one. I mean, but it's just so clear.
Gives you a lot more direction, and for people that aren't cocktail people as well, you know,
it makes a big glass. There's some fruit in here.
Makes it easier. You know, makes it less intimidating. I think.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too with the types of glasses on the side of it as well too. I went to another bar and I ordered one of the drinks, like one of their specialty drinks or whatever. And she pulls out a flute glass and she was like, "Is it okay if I put this whiskey in this flute? No. That's the way that it comes." And I was like, that's weird, but I mean, like, just do whatever you need to do. I don't care. But it's good to know, like, okay, because for Chris and I, at least, and people that know at least a little bit more about cocktails, like, okay, so this is how it's built. Because that's really how, like, these glasses are kind of made, is kind of how it's built, what's inside of it. So that helps a lot that way too.
Yeah, and we did a lot of just general surveys with like our friends and random people. It's like, read this drink. Do you know what, you know, Benedictine is? And they're like, no idea.
Nope. Does this make
Do you know
sense?
what any of these mean? They're like, not really. It's like, all right, now read these in categories. Like, do you now know what Aperol tastes like? They're like, oh yeah, so that's gonna be So I mean, it's just really meant to be informative and approachable. So you know, and I think menu design is a really important component of that. I'm really happy with our menu, and this is the first time we've done a menu like that. I think that we've done something similar, but I think that this kind of adds like a whole new level of approachability.
With the general, like, you know, what palette you're going for. We've never done one like that before.
Right. Yeah.
I wish more places did that.
Yeah, because I mean, you got to be user friendly, and I've definitely been in the position a million times in my life where I don't know what something is, and I don't want to ask.
Exactly.
I don't want to, But if I had gone into those bars and like seen, 15 years ago that it was in a coupe class, I would have known that I did not want that coupe class at that point in my life. Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's very helpful because, as most people know, if you go into a bar or you go someplace and they give you a menu, it's just like, oh. I'm like,
great.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
well, this
what
sounds
does this mean?
good.
Yeah.
And I feel like this makes it approachable for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to shift from the bar scene and want to move to more of a cocktail scene where someone's actually giving you something that's curated and not just like spilled alcohol and spirits all over the place, this is a good place to start because it can take you from, oh, hey, I'm used to drinking, Crown and Coke or something like really fruity, like a obviously not a four horseman. like a Royal Flush or like a.
My wife introduced me to
Sunrise.
Four Horsemen, and I've actually had quite a few of those. One of the first like drinks that it was like an ironic drink, but we were drinking golden turkeys. Like me, Chip, and my wife were at the bar at Churchill's. This is 11 years ago, and it was Thanksgiving. And we started making Goldschlager mixed with wild turkeys. And it's kind of become a tradition for me. It's like the worst thing you could possibly have. But like last year, my wife was like, surprise. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, we're still doing this.
But at least it's not a Four Horsemen. And like, that's great. Yeah.
Moving up in the world.
But yeah, I, in regards to what you were saying, I think it does help people that don't really know what they're looking for discover what they want in a cocktail.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of alludes to like a bigger theme. Like, there's no elitism when it comes to this stuff. This is really about like everyone should try everything. I mean, it's a rich world of experiences and choices, and like really, you just should try everything in the world. Like you should eat everything that you come across, and you should drink lots of stuff. And a lot of cocktail bars and fine dining restaurants have made themselves only available to a certain clientele for whatever reason, and it just doesn't make sense from a fundamental perspective or a business perspective or anything. So anything that we can do to make things more approachable.
That's been one of our goals for across the board at all the places. Take the pretension out of it, and just because you're serving an elevated product doesn't mean that you have to
act like you are.
Yeah.
Like we don't have any secrets to anything. Like, I mean, we're just doing stuff and being playful and making it approachable. Rum Cow is a good example of that. Like we're a casual dining restaurant. We don't own Rum Cow anymore. We sold Rum Cow in August, but the idea was just to introduce everything. We did classical French cooking to 100-year-old Oaxacan recipes to just all over the place.
Asian
Whatever
stuff is
Asian. We did southern hybrid Asian food because I love Asian food. I just got back from China, and we just wanted to be be and go all out and spare no expense or methodology. Like I would
same
sit
goes
up
here.
there.
If we feel like doing it, we're going to do it.
Yeah, that's great. So for you all too, how do you mix the business aspect with the artistry aspect of it?
I mean, it's super gratifying. You just got to continue to push the boundaries. So like, I think that I speak for all three of us, my wife included. We just constantly look at everything, and when you see something cool, you just want to make it. And then you start thinking outside the box and trying to figure out what we can do. You're making little things a lot that add a big thing to it, like atomizing tinctures and stuff.
It's a lot more work than obviously, a shot in a beer bar, but it's also a lot more rewarding. And people appreciate it a lot more. Yeah. And another aspect of that is, you go to a lot of cocktail bars and you are paying for the prep, you are paying for the presentation, you're paying for the work that goes into the cocktail. We pretty much try to keep our prices. If you look at that menu, you're asking how the artistry mixes with the business end of it. We're not going to charge you an extra $3 just because we can.
No,
right.
As long as
the
we
same
can,
price as Applebee's.
yeah, pretty much. And as long as we're can make our margin on it, then no, we're not going to add just added what ethereal cost that doesn't really.
Yeah, it's kind of and I'm not. I mean, it's a little pretentious when you do that.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, thinking that you can make something that has a baseline price but charge $4 more for it. Like I don't like it
just
when I pay
because we're so
$20
fancy, that
for a drink
pay,
that's got Maker's Mark in it. Like it's too much for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just fun, and the reason we do it is for the fun of it. And I think that's the reason that anyone should do anything. I think it should all be fun. Yeah. And developing new stuff is really just looking in a very, very big world and, drawing on previous experience and culinary experience and, really making a merger there. I think we started doing that with Rum Cow a lot, and mixing the kitchen and the ales together, but we were really doing a rum bar there. This is kind of a grander exploration of the two intersections.
Not to put you on the spot with this question, just because it's more...
I'm comfortable being on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So out of all of the places that you've started and developed, what was your favorite to develop and why?
Building is a big part of it for both me and Chip. I think exploring the space creatively and from a construction hands-on perspective makes each one of them super unique and kind of like children. When you look at any of the places that you guys are familiar with, we built every stitch of all of those places. So It's a lot more personal than that. And they're all so distinct that it's kind of accomplishing individual goals. So when we built a place like this, we had a style and we wanted to achieve this style. We wanted to have a particular look, a particular feel. So the development kind of went hand in hand with it, and it creates something that's like a freestanding concept. So it's hard to pick a favorite because they're distinct. They're just individual entities, and
That's very true.
I will say, just as far as like the stress level and fun level of build out, this one was my favorite.
Oh yeah,
because we didn't have other businesses going on. I wasn't working 3 jobs while we were building it. Joe wasn't running a bar and coming down.
And we've kind of made it in a certain sense where it's less.
We had less time constraints. We had less money constraints. And just less stress in general. If you're trying to run one business or two while you're building another one, it's overwhelming at times.
Sure.
Whereas, we're a couple guys down here cutting up, having fun, and building stuff and talking about what we're going to do with the menu. Then it again, takes it back to just being more fun.
Yeah.
Talking about fun. Is it actually,
Let's talk about fun.
No, so is it fun? Like, do you guys actually have a kitchen back there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing charcuterie.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, because you mentioned like coming up, did you make bitters?
Oh
for
yeah.
the Manhattan?
Yes.
I'm like,
we've made like 4 different kinds of bitters. There's one that's on the menu now, but we got more that are coming.
Yeah, and we do some tinctures, and we do the atomized tinctures, shrubs.
Yeah, and I
syrups. I think we got 7 or 8 different.
I think we always want to go for base production, right? So you ask kind of what drives it creatively. Things like bitters, like that's one of the first things that came to our minds, really. It's like, we've been buying Angostura for
I think everybody has.
Right.
But you don't have to. There's no reason to.
Yeah, but we still use Angostura
them.
too.
Sure. Yeah.
We probably got 12 different bitters up there, but being able to customize a specific bitter to a specific drink as opposed to buying it off the shelf.
Right. Yeah, and it's that level of customization, but you also get more reward with it. So is it more work? Yeah, but you kind of get bragging rights, right? I mean, you get kind of like a bigger payoff in the end because like it's finely crafted to what you're doing.
And a lot of our cocktails are proprietary on a number of levels. It's not just the fat washed or just the bitter, the bitters are just how we're smoking it or what house-made syrup or shrubs going into it. It's 3 or 4 of those things in a lot of our menu.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of takes, this is a cocktail that you really can't get anywhere else to the next level.
Well, and you gotta understand what you're doing too. So I mean, why do you make bitters? You make bitters so that you understand what bitters is and how it can taste and what can be different and kind of what it is.
And the more we play with it, the more we've been doing this a long time, but the more we play with it, the more we understand too.
Yeah, it's like tinctures. I mean, like tinctures are bitters. Amaro is a bitter, and vermouth is a bitter. Like they're all in the same spectrum. So, kind of cracking open the nut and starting with a tincture. A tincture is a single spice bitter. So, making stuff and feeling it out. Like we have 3 tinctures that we're running right now. If I combine those, then I've got a bitter. It's cool to play with stuff, and when you understand it at its kind of base level, then it makes it more usable when you're approaching cocktails or a menu build or something along those lines.
Something I'm sure Chris has noticed this as well too. But the best way that it was described to me is that bitters and tinctures is almost the same way that spices are used in food.
Yes.
And so that really opened my mind to it and how different cocktails can taste, or the same cocktail rather, can taste so different just based on how the same type of bitter was made.
Mm-hmm.
And that was mind blowing. And just by drinking this Manhattan too, it kind of speaks to that as well. So that's just really neat. And anything else that you should probably add to my very rustic way
No,
of
no,
describing
I think
that.
that's great. And like from a culinary perspective, like, I mean, I cooked for 20 years and I did all the fine dining you could imagine and loved it. And there was like 10 years that I just wanted to be as complicated as possible. I just wanted to, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Just
wrap it in
because I
grape leaf
can.
and I'm going to put it on blah. I mean, it was just like this race to be the coolest or the smartest or something. I don't know what it was. Hubris, I guess. And then at some point I was like thinking back to like the first thing I ever cooked on my own. Like, and I think I was, 10 or 11 and I had those Omaha steaks that are like prepackaged.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like I was like, I want to make a steak and like, I don't know how to cook. And I turned the oven on to broil and put it at 500, not knowing what I was doing. And sprinkled some rock garlic salt over it. And like, I ate that steak and it was the first time that I had like a multi-component steak that had been broiled. And it was just like a atom bomb for me. It was like, oh my God. And then, somewhere in my culinary career, right into like the Rum Cow stage of it, I guess, I was like, man, I got to return to simple. Like sometimes simple is better. Sometimes, this complicated stuff is masking the flavors of things. And sometimes things can be enjoyed if they're just higher quality with simpler ingredients. And, that's kind of, the age cycle, I guess. I mean, I'm 40 now, and I'm a dad and I love being a dad and a lot of things are just kind of reverting back. And yeah. So, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's both worlds, that's why we use tinctures and bitters. A tincture, that's atomized gives you a blast of clove and the aromatics kind of, round out the portfolio of a vermouth or an Amaro in a drink. And, it's nice to add a simple touch and then the complexity of like a well-refined bitters, like our double black bitters that you were talking about. It defines the drink. So we have both worlds kind of intersecting, but I certainly think that we would rely on a culinary background to kind of make those kind of judgments.
And I'm going to steal one of Chris's questions, so will probably steal mine.
Did you guys prepare questions?
We only have two.
Oh, two.
That's the only way that this works.
That's awesome.
We're not that organized. But Chris's typical question, which is today is mine, is so how would you define success?
For me, being happy doing what you're doing and having enough time, really it's all about time.
Yeah.
Having enough time to live your life and still do what you got to do and not hate every minute of being at your job.
Right.
Because I've had a lot of jobs that I hated every minute of.
I'll tell you what, man, 10 years ago, I think we both would have had a different answer.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like an evolution, and I don't know. I think that Chip nailed it. It's just in search of lost time, man. That's what it's all boils down to. I mean, having a kid, having a 3-year-old, Chip's got a 7-year-old, that's what you see more and more. I thought success in my 20s, like I pushed hard, man. Like I've been tenacious my whole life. I want to open places. I want to own my own spot. I want to open more. I want to conquer this.
Money and whiskey probably would have been my 25-year-old answer.
Right.
Yeah, but it's so rare that I think about any of that stuff anymore. It's just time, right? Being able to introduce my daughter to a good way of life and have like a good dimension. I still have to make money to provide for my family, but if we can make money to provide for our families and still have enough time to spend with our family, then I think we're winning. I think being a good dad and husband would define success in my mind.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's perfect.
Because he always likes to go super deep and then I go super funny. A dual part question. Nothing actually deep. It's just kind of silly. What is your favorite drink on your menu for both of you guys? And then what is your favorite single spirit?
I'm going to go for that Manhattan Clandestino. I think it's just a full range. I love it. Did you drink the Manhattan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot, and I don't know. I think it's super dynamic. My single favorite spirit, if I didn't think about money or like when I was going to drink it or something along those lines, I'd go for a high mark Lagavulin. I think that you can't beat it just from like a depth and complexity perspective. I think that's probably my favorite Scotch right now.
So I love the Manhattan Clandestino also, but one of the ones I'm the most proud of on that menu, and I've mentioned it a couple times in interviews before we opened, is the Not Your Thai, which is a spiced tiki drink, and it's got a coconut washed aged rum, which gives just a really delicate kind of coconut flavor. But then it's also got a pineapple habanero demerara. That's the sweetening agent in that bad boy. So, and it's kind of a play on a Mai Tai. It's rather boozy, but you get a lot of crisp citrus notes on the front. You get some sweetness in the middle. You get some spice on the end, and then it just kind of resets by the time you take another sip of it. And I've tried over the years to like perfect several spiced tiki drinks. That's just something I'm 100% a whiskey guy more than I am anything else. But just the idea of like, okay, I want something you can drink on the beach, but it's still spicy. You know, it's just it's a challenge. You know, and I feel like we really nailed it with that one. So I'd say that's probably mine.
My wife has been drinking those at the house too, so I think that she might vote for that.
That tells a lot too.
It's just a really complex drink, but it all comes together. You know,
And that's End of Days Rum.
That's
I
a
also got
local
to shout
distillery.
them out.
Okay.
And he's doing a coconut fat wash on that guy, which is really nice, and especially when you put it against something like like a flavored spirit. I don't think we have any flavored spirits here. I think if we're going to do something like that, we're going to infuse the flavor ourselves.
You're not going to get any kind of syrupy, sweet coconut rum here.
Yeah. That sounds good. I'm going to have to try that one too.
And I'm a bourbon man through and through. If I can get a bottle of Blanton's, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
I've seen this guy with many a bottle of Maker's Mark there.
Yeah, true.
I like that.
It's interesting, all the mics and wires. Like,
Can you hear me?
I keep on thinking of like a doctor's office. I don't know why, but like the feeling is similar. Like it's mildly intrusive, but it's like it's not bad. Like, you know that it's going to be okay, but like there's stuff pointed at me and there's wires everywhere.
How does this work? What's going on?
Right.
Like, this is just a
Bunch of
checkup.
lights.
Nothing's going to happen today, but
Right.
there is this feeling.
Down in the future, you never know what might happen. So yeah.
It's always interesting because we're only a year in, so we've tried a bunch of different things. Our original setup was me and Tyler with these little mics on a like 6-inch stand.
Oh, like the Bob Barker mics.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds fun.
And I'm not a short person, but trying to talk into them, leaning into the things, Tyler's like, I hate you so much. You're so quiet. I'm like, yes, I am a quiet spoken person.
You're like, well, my back hurts because I'm like,
Yeah. Trying to lean into, and then we now have the recording studio, so it's kind of like a preset, and we hide more of the cables, and then we're on location. It's like, I kind of can't hide cables anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think it's just kind of cool just to see the evolution and kind of see like the different locales and the setups. And before I say thank you guys for showing up and letting us in here, my final question, what would you tell, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
oh wow,
I don't know.
a lot of things that I'm not going to say on a podcast. That's for sure.
I don't know. I'd say money doesn't mean as much as you think. I think that's the best advice I could give my young self.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that.
Well, anecdotal, but extremely true. I feel like I wasted a lot of my life in the pursuit of money.
Yeah, which I mean, you got to.
It's nice to have too. So
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, I got to agree with that.
Yeah. It's kind of been like, it's from just talking to you guys for the past little bit over an hour, just kind of the marriage of that. It's just like, you both know what the hustle looks like to create that money, but you also know what the freedom looks like on the end of that. And knowing that it's not actually that the making the money part of the hustle wasn't the part that made you happy. It was, but the freedom.
It was the hustle that made you
happy.
happy,
Exactly.
you know? But I mean, and it's super. I mean, it's terrible to say stuff like that because we have enjoyed success, and like I don't know that I'd be saying that if I
was about to say if I was
where I was
having to
I appreciate
take out a loan. If I was having to take out a loan for groceries,
then
then I probably wouldn't feel that way.
I appreciate the irony of the statement, but I still feel like I gave up a lot in the pursuit. Yeah, so I'd like it back.
See?
Well, and again, it comes back to time.
Yeah.
All of the time chasing things that are I mean they're important in your day-to-day life, but they're not important to your overall happiness.
Right.
And when you get older, it's just you can't get that time back.
Yeah, I think we all just want to be kids again, man.
Yeah, really.
Watching my 3-year-old is just so sweet. We found an anthill earlier today, and we fed the ants acorns for like an hour.
Yeah.
It's like, this is so much fun. Like, this is so much better.
Teaching my daughter how to ride her bicycle, it made me happier than anything I can remember in my recent history. Yeah.
I have a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-old.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
yeah, same thing too. Yeah, just being able to spend time with my son and my daughter, and just like the small thing, like building Legos. Just like the small things
amazing.
like that is so much more than I can remember. Just
I cry.
professional
I
life.
cry all the time. Now,
Yeah.
man. Like, all
It's
the
the crazy
time.
things that happen to me
I
as a
know,
dad.
it's nuts.
I never cry.
It's like my 3-year-old will randomly grab me and like kiss me on the forehead and like pat my head and say, "I love you, Dad." It's just like,
Penelope called me.
just overwhelming.
Or my wife Noelle called me at 8:30 last night, which is the kids' bedtime. This was the first night outside of the weekend that I hadn't been home to put her to bed. I'd been home for dinner because we just opened back up. But she called me. And I thought it was my wife on the phone. She put the kid on and She just wanted to tell me she loved me and good night. And I just about started crying
That's
in
great.
the kitchen.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
It was a near
can hit
thing.
you anywhere.
It was a near thing. I had to really tighten up.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's a wild world, and it just comes around full circle. And then we're 40 now, so I mean, at some point, I just became the older guy.
Right. Yeah, you blink and you're the old guy in the room. It's like
I bought part of Melting Pot when I was 21 years old, just straight up sweat equity, the old school way. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're the youngest guy to ever own a fine dining restaurant." And I was like, "Oh my God, I am. This is so cool." No one says that anymore. Like, "Oh, you one of the owners?" I'm like, "Oh, damn, not the young guy doing it anymore, just the guy doing it."
Yeah, you're no kind of phenom. You're just a dude.
I feel like that was me when I got into the jewelry business. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm the young person."
You're so young.
And then now I've been there long enough. I'm like, "Oh,
It's just what I do now.
yeah." The young kids come in and are like, "Oh, hey, you're old," and I'm like, they still have like 30 years on me, so I'm not really old, but I guess I am.
But it's weird not being the youngest. I mean, to be appreciated for the novelty of it.
When people started
like,
calling me sir, I was just like, oh no.
It comes for all of
This
us.
happens.
Oh, it just hits a point in life. So, fellas, is there a spot that anyone can find you guys on social media or like follow you, like the progression of the business?
Man, I'm gonna have to look at it on my phone because I don't.
I believe it's Underfront ILM on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. I feel like I was looking at something the other day and I'm like, ooh, these guys are opening up. That's how I found
do
it.
know-
No, it's
I-
Underfront
I-
Wilmington is what
I
it
know
is.
our email address now.
Oh, did you find it?
Yeah, I did. Underfront ILM. I found that one out.
Underfront Wilmington is the Instagram and the Facebook.
My wife is substantially better with the social media.
Don't worry.
Yeah, we have no idea what we're
Got
doing.
this
with
guy.
social-
Well, we will tag you in the show notes, and
Appreciate that.
we'll put you
Appreciate
all
that.
over our
Cool.
Instagram.
Cool.
too.
Thank you kindly.
You
Thank
will
you
be
kindly.
there. Yeah, and I know we talked about this before, but maybe our social media and your social media might find a short video of you guys teaching us how to make a cocktail.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we can
man.
definitely work that out. Yeah.
We'll get you behind the bar. Have you guys been behind a bar before? Have you ever been bartenders or?
Well,
You
not
have?
bartenders.
Bartenders? No.
As content creators, we've been behind the bar of a couple bars showing people how to make cocktails, or other people showing us how to make cocktails,
Oh,
I'd
cool,
rather
yeah.
say. But we definitely wanted you to be one of the first ones to show us too. So.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
we'd
we
be
made
happy
that
to.
happen for sure.
And it feels good back there, man. There's something super special about. I mean, you're almost on a show. I mean, like 24 hours a day. Like you're back there, and like you're the guy inside the bar. Like I always love the feeling of being kind of on stage.
Well, and these, super intricate cocktails, that have 5-6 ingredients, and you're smoking them, and you're doing the flamed orange bills, and you're doing all the crazy garnishes and whatnot. You'll look up, and everybody's looking at you. You're putting on a show, whether you realize it or not. For sure.
And I remember Chip back in the day. This is in Churchill's days, and this is not a very good cocktail reference. But I looked over at some point. We had 500-person people in the club at the time, and we had half gallons of LIT fixings. And I look over and I see Chip holding 4 half gallons with 9 glasses in front of him, just pouring 9 LITs at one time with 2 hands.
We made a lot of
Half
LITs.
gallons, not fifths, half gallons. He's got like 17 pounds worth of liquor. Just
My hands were strong in those days.
yeah, it was amazing. And like you just, and that's one of those things. Like this business is like so intense. There's a lot of like points that you're just like, you just got to breathe in, keep working. Like this is a hustle business. And when you're busy, like we did 600 people on Friday. And wow. So.
And it was our first, fully open night.
When you're
stuff.
going at that
Everybody's still
level.
learning the list. It's just like,
Exactly.
oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Ready
you
or
just
not.
do it, and like it's like it's just a Spartan exercise, man.
Yeah.
Like it's like you get in there, and there's nothing that feels like it. It's just this intense kind of performance.
It's always been the kind of joke is I know plenty of bartenders and I'm like, oh, I could make that drink. And they're like, but could you?
Now, could you make that drink with 40 other drinks
Yeah,
in
yeah.
15
Yeah,
minutes?
exactly.
Yeah,
That becomes the question.
with 6 people, deep at the bar, yelling and
But it's fun,
having a
man,
large
and the
time.
time flies. Like it's the kind of job that like it does go quick, which is a cool thing. Like I like jobs that like you start and then it's over.
Yeah, you look
very
up, it's
brief.
1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I just want to shout out everyone. Underfront Co. Bar and Lounge is downtown Wilmington, right next to the Waffle House. So if for some reason you order a drink that is very boozy and you didn't realize it because you can't understand pictures, you can walk over to Waffle House,
Go get some hash browns.
Yeah, right.
All-star special.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening. We are on all of your podcast setups, Apple, Spotify, all the big boys. Leave us a review, 5 stars preferably, and come back for next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so
thank y'all.
much.
It's fun.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.